It's about looking after them too. You want to make money and grow. You make sure they're making money. We give the guys little targets. They hit them. They can make an extra 10, 15 grand a year in bonuses. Mid-season trip, we might go to the footy and get a box and have a few beers, and probably looking after your team and knowing every day someone's always going through some sort of like we are as a business owner. You worry about yourself sometimes. And
everyone who sits in that chair, it all comes from, I just took anything I could. The money wasn't the biggest driver. Of course, we needed the money. But what I was actually after is work.
Well, if you want to make a 20% margin on a job, you have to charge the job at 25%. And everyone goes, what do you mean? So when you do all your costings and you add it all up and look at your bottom line, we actually made, it's actually 20%, not 25% is your profit margin.
Good morning, we're back again, another episode, and today we are here with Matt from Ryan Developments. Say g'day.
G'day, Jimmy. Thanks for having us in.
Now you've got to tell us what you do.
I'm Matt at Ryan Developments. We specialise in knockdown rebuilds and custom homes around Melbourne, especially around the north. We're big around the Montmorency, Greensborough, Eltham area. Any site that's challenging or difficult or unique, we take it on.
I actually saw a video last week that I didn't interact with you too much, and probably until a few months ago, but then I saw a video of you pouring a slab inside a house while the roof was still up and walls were still up, and you'd ripped out fucking everything, and I looked at it and thought, what a shit show.
Correct. So anything like that, we specialise in. Anything difficult or hard or weird to identify, we'll take it on. So this is an old Alistair Knox home in the back of Eltham. And the owners want to stay true to the home, keep with that same style and tradition with the red bricks and the timber and the exposed beams. So, as well as put a modern twist on it with hydronic heating and all the creature comforts we have these days. So, try and incorporate the old into the new and make it all happen. Yes, we're in the early stages now, supporting the existing roof by about 8 props. We knocked everything out. Almost looks like a complete knockdown at the moment. But,
sounds like an absolute shit fight. But we hadn't had a builder on that did this sort of like, or who had made it to you've made it to the big time in sort of this knockdown and rebuild and refresh and modernise space. You know, there's probably not many people who are doing the level of that you guys are, and so I thought it would be interesting to tell your story. Come on, have a bit of a yak about it. Take us back to the beginning. Where'd you start?
Yeah, back to the beginning. So the old man was a builder. He had a big building company in a local town we grew up in, Whittlesea. He probably built 100 plus houses around there back in the day, and my brother and myself did an apprenticeship with him. Some brother's got a great building company called Markup. They do some excellent work in that custom home space as well. So we both did an apprenticeship with him, come out of our time as Chippies. I was swinging a hammer for a fair few years and always had the aspiration to be a builder.
What was it like working with your dad and your brother, Bart?
Well, it was all right with Dad because he was sort of the business. He wasn't sort of involved in the day-to-day too much. We had another one of the apprentices, his old man Dino, was basically our boss. He taught us everything from pitch and roofs to boxing slabs to hanging doors, absolutely everything. So it was good. But with that brother dynamic at that age, I was 16, he was 18. You'd probably clash a little bit being brothers.
Yeah, I would have hit my brother with a hammer if I had to work with him every day.
Yeah, there were some interesting days on site. It's funny because my brother and I would have that dynamic, and then James, the other apprentice, him and his old man would have another dynamic. So there's always a bit of commotion. And
so was that the whole crew?
Yes.
Dad, a son, and then 2 brothers?
Yeah, correct. That was early days. And then as Dad sort of built the business, he probably subbed some more things out and other trades and network, but the core employees was just us, yeah. And it was actually really good as relationships evolve. My brother and I, we're best mates now. We're inseparable. Anything we go through, we talk on a daily basis. We share a factory office together, and it's just funny. We both have the same result, but we can't work together in the day-to-day business. So he runs Marbuilt, I run Ryan Developments, essentially competitors, but there's that much work out there. There's no issue at all.
Did you realise that early on when you two were apprentices that you probably couldn't be working together, or did that come about a bit later?
Probably come down a bit later. Michael was he's like a poor man's Eddie Maguire. Everyone knows him. Anyone in the football world or whatever. And I'll ring my brother if I want a new set of tyres. He goes, yeah, I know Tails, he works at this place. Drop your car off today. He'd know anyone about anything, and he still does. Unbelievable. His network's huge. So he was probably always going to definitely be the builder. But I was probably a bit more hands-on and just like the craftsmanship and carpentry probably evolved later to that builder role. So my brother's probably 3 steps ahead in that way. And I started off, I did some work with him. We started off together, but there's always 5 different ways to go about a job. I'd go left, he'd go right. You get the exact same result, happy customer and a great product, but different methods. So we're best mates. We do development together. We buy the land, and either I do the build or he does the build. And with finance, it's not an issue. Either make money or lose money. Never one issue. But involved in the day-to-day, we could probably clash and butt heads a little bit, so we just keep that part separate.
Yeah. You end up headbutting each other on site. So did your old boy, did he end up being, was he one of the real builders that I would call of the day, which is like you actually built the house? Like back then you had builders building a house. Now most of the builders who are out there end up being more of the project managers, which I'm not having a knock at project managers either. It's the way that, like with the compliance and everything and all the paperwork that has to go around, you have to have them. It's super difficult to be a jack of all trades these days and project manage plus deliver the product.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that. There was I don't know when it was, probably 2010, 2012, there was a timber shortage. So you couldn't get roof trusses. So we had to start pitching the roof with the old Oregon rafters and things like that. So it was a real unique experience and proper craftsmanship. Like, you don't see it these days. You ask a kid to pitch a roof and they look at you like you're talking about Mars or something. It's a real unique skill that's sort of probably dying a little bit around that sort of Victoria region, around Perth and that. They still pitch roofs and.
So you're talking about the fact that you can buy a prefab, frame or whatever it is, and they just come and then your job is to stand them up straight.
Mechanics it, and it makes sense these days too. So they do it cheaper. It's more efficient, on time. Everything's right. You stand them up, screw it together. It's a walk in the park these days. Whereas the old days, there was a bit more craftsmanship and thinking and skill involved. So it's more efficient these days, yes, but it feels like that dying aspect of carpentry has probably definitely gone down a couple of levels for sure.
I spoke to a guy, actually his podcast came out last week, which is Heidi Build, which he was super like invested in the art of carpentry and the art of that. And I look at his Instagram and he's talking about, like who doesn't love a sharp chisel? And you go,
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I couldn't give a fuck, a sharp chisel.
See, that's where it comes down to the actual craftsmanship and the nature. It's I want to see someone passionate about that, and if you're a client, you want that guy in your house.
Yeah, 100%.
About a $25 chisel. These days, kids buy them, go blunt, throw them away, and go again. Yeah. Someone like him would finally sharpen it and make it crisp.
But that's what ends up happening when there's a Bunnings on every single corner, and a chisel now used to be, I don't know, enough money that it was expensive and had to be looked after.
And they teach you how to sharpen it, and that was your pride and joy.
Well, I remember my grandpa, he had a shovel, and his spitter shovel, they get him that long, and he'd worn his down to a fucking thing this big. And, nowadays, I have brand new shit you see on the site and it's just left it lying in the mud or whatever else. And it's hard to get that little bit of pride sort of thing. They're gone are the days that, no one's going to be a grandpa in 50 years and have their shovel that they've worn down to a nub.
I just think it's the way it's evolved a little bit these days. Things are cheaper and easy accessible and people probably take it for granted. I think back in the day, even when growing up, and things were a bit rarer. You had to protect all your equipment, look after everything and treat it well. And these days it's almost a commodity.
Yeah, I think it ends up being, I actually say on some of the stuff about the machines that, they're a tool. And that they're a tool and the tool needs to be replaced, the tool needs to be used, and if a tool breaks, then look at it, do the numbers on if it's worthwhile fixing it or just replacing it. And that's with an excavator, which
stems right through.
Yeah, it's gone right through. So you're in Whittlesea building houses and did you finish your apprenticeship with your old boy?
I was about 3 years in and then he stepped away from building and I sort of went straight to qualification. My brother was qualified at the time, so went out with him early days and started building frames together. So third year, pretty much become qualified straight away, straight in the deep end. Either had to find another apprenticeship or keep rolling on with it. So I just sort of basically finished my schooling and got myself signed off and straight into the deep end. Become a subcontractor, doing frames for volume builders, doing whatever work you can early days to sort of get some runs on the board and your foot in the industry, and then sort of progress further and further into upskilling and putting time into yourself.
I always hear that, but I think when I dive into it, it always seems to be a little bit of a different story. That rather than trying to navigate on purpose where you're going. It's really just like the phone rings and you'll take anything and say yes to, like, fuck it. Guys like, hey, will you do a frame 150 Ks away? And you're like, fuck yeah, no problem.
Anything and everything on. And that was probably the biggest problem. You don't identify it till later when you probably get the runs and reputation on the board. Then you can start narrowing your focus into a specialty.
But when you identify it, you're not, I don't know if you're identifying that, you know, you shouldn't be doing that stuff, or that it's you're not making as much money as you should, or, you know, that you're working for people you shouldn't work for, or in the volume building game, sometimes that, you know, doesn't allow for a lot of growth. They sort of keep you in your lane, but you just start to be noticed, and the opportunities that come are different, and you say yes to those opportunities and you let the other ones slide. I think that everyone who sits in that chair, obviously I'm trying to target people who have an interesting story. It all comes from, I just took anything I could. The money wasn't the biggest driver. Of course, we needed the money, but what I was actually after is work.
Yeah, correct. You do anything. That's what we did. We started growing. Went out on my own, started doing my own frames, got 1 or 2 apprentices, got more work, and I probably fell into that trap early days of just accepting the rates and working for the volume builders, and accepting, that's the offer, I'll just take it because I want the work.
You think it's a trap though? I think that looking back, that with the experience it's a trap, or do you think it's like a runway to get you where you need to go?
Definitely a runway.
And although it's shit, like, because it is, like, some of the rates that they put out are shit, but how they let the work, like how they organise it around you, provides a really good support structure for a tradesman who, or, you know, in our case, like the waffle pod slabs and the, you know, all of those site cuts that they give you, everything fucking like broken down into the smallest, you know, thing, that it gives you a support structure to be able to launch a business, get some money in, and then start to really lean into what you're going to do, sort of thing.
Well, you're exactly right. And they keep up the work for you. You're not really searching for work like I am now all the time. It's one job in front of the next. You do well, they give you more and more work, and you grow that way. We had about 12 carpenters at one point because the volume builders just...
12 doing frames?
Yeah, just framing.
Fuck, you must have knocked out some frames, because they don't give you a long time if you...
Yeah, well, you have about a week to do them in. It's funny... We did big weeks. We hired a guy. He works for my brother now, actually. Kieran, he did his apprenticeship with me and signed him off, and he works for my brother. But early days, we'd work 7 to 5 every day, and every Saturday, 8:30 to about 3. And that were the hours. So there was one week we did a normal week, just 7 to 3:30, didn't work the Saturday, and he got his paycheck, and he was like, fuck, my pay's about half the amount. He thought his first year rate was X amount because we just did the hours. He thought he was making really good money. So... that was the big thing for us early days too. You just worked hard. Simple as that.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said that at the beginning you got to work hard. Like you obviously you don't necessarily have the business skills. You don't have the depth and resources to offer like that, or the tools or whatever it is. What you've got to offer is fucking hard yakka. And if you put your hand up and say our standard day is 7 till 5, standard. And if we're running a bit behind, it might creep out a little bit, and we might get there a little bit early. But that's the offer. You know, I got crucified on the internet the other week about putting up a thing about 15 minutes early. I don't know if you saw it. I had about 1,000 comments that absolutely roasted me, calling me everything under the sun. But if they listen to the podcast, which they're never going to because they just like to fucking complain. Get stuck into me on a fucking Wednesday night while they're sitting at home. If they listen to it, it said it's the opportunity that you're chasing. That's what you need. And the way to get there, if you're an employee that's looking to step up, if you're an employee that's looking for more, if you want to be the most valued employee, the most valued ones are ready to rock and roll at their start time. Not the bloke who's sitting in his car until 2 minutes to 7, then gets out with his coffee, then decides to take a shit, then decides that he's going to start working at 20 past 7 or put on his nail bag then. Of course, he has a job. We're not saying he doesn't have a job, but then if times are tough or, there's no work next week, who's the guy sitting?
Well, I was pretty brutal early days. I've relaxed a lot now. A couple of the guys have been with me since the get-go. Can't believe the opposite to what I am now to how I was early days. We started at 7. So you'd be there at 6:30, you have your coffee, you talk you gibberish for 15 minutes, 6:45, tools are out, 7 o'clock on the dot, compressors on, making noise and you're swinging a hammer.
Yeah.
That was it. You started at 7. You don't turn up at 7, set up and talk shit, and 7:30 if you lost half an hour for the morning, that adds up to 2.5, 3 hours a week.
That's it. So, and I used to load trucks at 7. So that means at 6:58, the trucks are trying to drive into the job because you're allowed to enter a block. Like it was at, I've done my checks. Like, don't get me wrong, paying the boys like to do that sort of stuff, but you know, like, fucking where do you get off? Your start time being 7 and you thinking that you can walk in the door at 7 and that's the tick box, which happens a lot. And I get the exact same thing from you for people who have been with me or around me for a long time. They're like, Jimmy, like, your guys started calling in the trucks at 7:10. They were in the gate at 7:15.
Looking for a reaction.
Now, mind you, like, you know, if we have 20 trucks on the board, you know, and the first one is at 7:15, we're fucked. The whole day is dusted.
Yeah.
But you can't teach that part either, and you end up doing your brain for so long.
Anyone trying to grow a business or anything, you just put in the time and effort and you set them standards. You lead by example and everything else will follow. It's not that hard sometimes.
No.
Do the right thing, get there early, work hard, and the boss will put time and effort into you, upskill you, and one day be a bloody good tradesman, then you'll eventually evolve to be a bloody good businessman.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I did have a question for the 1,000 people who were commenting about the start and work at 6:45 and not at 7, or being at work. I should say being at work. What the fuck are you doing at 5 a.m. that's so important that you can't roll out of bed? Like, what? Like, do you have your blankie and you cuddle in it? Like,
but even,
you know.
You got peers and co-workers, you roll on a Monday morning, just get there at 6:40, 6:30. How's the weekend? Have a quick yarn, get out the system, you know, have a chat to everyone, have a bit of a laugh, then get into it. Like, it's not that hard.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a good day of work either.
Put together the Construction Exchange, and it's brought to you by Clement Hire and Starbucks. September 13th, tickets are on sale now. It's in the city, late afternoon event, food and drinks provided. But we're doing it because the industry is missing something. There's a lot of networking events, a lot of things that people get together for, but all of them are for something else. They sit you on the table, they feed you dinner, and you listen all night to an MC, but they're not actually geared toward maybe what the industry needs right now, which is connections, finding different businesses to help support yours, maybe getting an opportunity or two. And from this podcast, we've actually gone through a whole range of different trades and people who work in the industry, and we thought, why not bring them together, have a few drinks, meet people, but mostly it's about actually just expanding your network, make some new friends, and maybe find an opportunity or two that you might not have had before. September 13th, come down, say good day. I think it'll be a fun night.
I think that the good day at work is changing in its definition, though, for what the output is that's expected.
Yes and no. Whole is, you know, everyone goes, oh, young kids these days don't get it. And I'm like, fuck, am I just getting older and saying that? Because my old man said it back in the day as well. It's like, now I'm the old man. Am I just saying it? We had a kid, he's working for me now, young Campbell. He was only a 16-year-old kid and he wanted an apprenticeship. I was like, you're only 16, drive you to work and get you around. I said, mate, just do some work experience for 2 weeks and see how you go. Then one day, we knock off at 3:30 generally these days, and it was about 3:45. He's like, oh, we're going to work a bit longer? I'm thinking, who's this little kid? Yeah, we're going to keep working. And he goes, oh, no, I don't mind working. I just got to go to KFC. I start at KFC at 4:30. So I'm like, yeah, finish up. So he'd finish up. I drove him to KFC, and he worked from 4:30 to 10 o'clock. I said, oh, how have you been doing this, mate? So he's working at KFC 3 nights a week, working at Coles 4 days a week, and going to school. I'm like, this kid's some kid I want to hire. Mm-hmm. He's actually got the work ethic and wants to be there, and you know he's saving every cent, and you know he's 17 and a half now. He's about 45 grand saved. Like, that doesn't happen. But there's kids out there that still do it.
You know, I had a young bloke, I'll actually give him a little bit of a shout out about it. I had a young bloke called Tilden who used to work for me, who came to me at 15 years old. I think it was 15. Started his apprenticeship, work experience, came back, said he wanted a job any day he had off. Then he quit school and went to VCAT and worked for whatever it is, studying, and then worked for me through that. Then quit VCAT and just worked for me. Then he worked with me until he was about 21, 22, and then he went to doing more of the big build stuff. And I can remember when he called up, and I had my fucking time wasted that bad by people. And I said to him, "Oh, you got to get to," I can't remember where the job is. Let's say Caulfield. We start work 7, be there 6:45. I rocked up at 6:15, and there was a kid sitting out the front of the job, and there was no one around. And I said, "Well, how'd you get here?" And he goes, "Well, I caught the first train. I caught a bus to the train. Then I took the first train into the city. Then I took the train from the city to somewhere. And then I walked the 2 kilometres to get here, or 1.5 kilometres to get here. But I didn't want to be late or miss anything, so I got here about 15 minutes ago."
So you just had an hour and a half commute just to get there on time.
And you go, like, that guy, he's a killer operator. He can operate anything, like, and who are you going to put the time into? No. Like, you know, and then you have another guy who sits down, and I had someone say to me the other day, that job's a bit far. And I said, "Oh, how far is it?" And they're like, "Oh, it's like 40 minutes.
Jesus.
And they're like, "Oh, can I get a tank of fuel for the travel?" And you go, I get it. Like, life is fucked at the minute. Like, world's expensive. You know, you go buy a loaf of bread today compared to 3 months ago, it feels like a double. Like, you got kids who are working at Coles, stacking shelves, putting themselves out for the apprenticeship, saying he'll work late and then be like, but the only thing I've got to get to is my job. Then you got someone who sits down and says, "Oh, it's 40 minutes.
And anyone out there who's even listening now, if you want to get a job, just turn up early and work back a little bit and do some extras, and then that guy will put time into you. Then you'll get elevated from here to there very quickly.
And just leave your phone in your pocket. Leave the phone in the pocket, because I know everyone's on their phones, because now the guy in charge of the job's checking the plans on his phone. And then the project manager on the client side comes past. He's on his phone. Then you go past and your phone rings 17 times plus 3 text messages. We get it. We're on our phones. But then you look across and the apprentice or the labourer's on their phone and you go, "I don't think you need to be."
Yeah, I don't think there's nothing too important you're doing, mate. Just pick up the shovel and keep digging that trench out for me, would you?
I don't know if I've told this story before. I had a young bloke who was working for me, labourer, really keen digger operator, like wanted to operate like he needed air in his lungs. And I went to the job to load out on a Saturday morning. Job was super tight. We didn't have a lot of boys that were available on the Saturday. And I went to load out. And I went there, met him early. He met me early. We had a coffee, spoke about how we were going to set up the job to run it the most efficient, how we were going to run the trucks and everything else like that. And then I told him to watch how I was going to set up the job in the excavator and load them. I started loading these 15 trucks and I kept looking up at the gate where he was meant to be standing, looking after the pedestrians. And he was on his phone, like the whole time. I finished loading the trucks. I walked up and I said, "Mate, what the fuck are you looking at that's so good on your phone?" And he goes, "Oh, I want to buy some 4-wheel drive parts."
Jesus.
And you go,
and he's telling the boss,
"You probably ain't got it, eh?"
Nah.
But we can't skip too much of your story because you only just started going out and framing. Now we've got to segue back into that. So now you've got 10 blokes on framing or something?
Yeah, and then you probably start losing a bit of passion for it. You're doing the same thing every day. You've got a bit more experience, more runs on the board, and obviously want to go to that next level and become a builder. You do builder's course and go through the jargon to become a registered builder, and they teach you everything but how to run a business, which is still very, very wrong in the industry now. It needs to be changed.
What was the investment like for you to become a builder?
Wasn't too bad. I obviously employed one of those builder's license, made easy places. You pay you $3,000 to $5,000 or whatever it was back in the day, and they help you prepare for the exam and learn how to brace a house with wind bracing and how to calculate a lintel for window opening, all these things you don't need to do because an engineer does it anyway. So you learn everything you don't need to know. Then you sit
Is
the
that
exam.
really what it's like a little bit?
Yep, still is now. I think they're trying to tweak it now because it was an exam you had to sit. So the exam, if you've done the study, it's a walk in the park. I'm not the brightest person in the world and I still got 95 on the exam. And then you sit in an interview for about 3 hours, maybe 6 months later, one-on-one with a bloke, and they quiz you on everything about business, what you've done, and that is probably the real story where you become a builder or not, which I think is very good. They had to tweak the system now because there's people rorting it, and they've changed the whole method now.
Who'd have thought?
Yes, people getting paid under the table and giving licences away. But anyway, get the licence and you're out there to start building. So we start doing a couple of renovations, extensions, again, whatever work you can get with a licence. Advertising as a jack of all trades. I can do a carport, I can do a garage, I can do a renovation, I can do a new home, whatever it is. And you get the job out there and you do the right thing by the customer. And one thing I think we sort of captured well was, and I didn't know at the time, if we did a job and the relationship was great at the end of the job, we'd get a thing called a video testimonial at the end of the job. The client would speak in front of a camera for 10 or 15 minutes.
When did you start doing that?
Probably about 5 years ago.
That's pretty early. That's pretty early days to be doing that. Like, that's everywhere now. Like, that's... But
and it's worth its weight in gold. Instead of just seeing a little Google review on the thing, I'm very happy with Matt and the boys' work. It's a proper chat and there's B-roll in the background of seeing the finished build and what we're able to achieve. And I think that just speaks volumes. You just do one good thing and just rolls into the next. And then you sort of start learning more about your business and what's an overhead, what's a margin, what are my expenses. I need to do a bit of social media now. I need to do marketing. So you start building your costs and you work out where your overheads are and you find out what your niche is. And for us, we sort of naturally fell into it. We were just working on these challenging sites and not many people would quote against you because they're difficult. And there's so many unknowns. Everyone going, how do you quote that? We just sort of have the experience of what things cost and what things are going to achieve. And we sort of now really honed into that sort of knockdown rebuild space and personally love the work. We had a period of time, we're doing a lot of work. It's all sort of generic, a nice new build and it was all pretty standard stuff. And now we're sort of breaking into that real unique build and it's a U-shaped house with the pool in the middle on a slopey block, retaining walls and lots of earthworks and something we're sort of passionate about.
Lots of earthworks. No, he doesn't need another earth move. I don't know if we've done a job for you, but you don't like lots of earthworks. I'm in. But some of the houses, and especially I noticed the one around Eltham, and Eltham looks like a shithole to build in.
Oh yeah, it's challenging. Every time you look at a driveway, it's like this before you walk in the door.
It's a cliff. Like the reason why they built a suburb there, like on the side of a cliff, is like some of those blocks are super steep.
Yeah, they go straight up. Then you get an earthwork build before you even start of 70, 80 grand, and retaining walls another 50. And the clients are 130 grand in before you even start putting a shovel in the ground to start building the house. But it's good. You have to think a lot because once you start tackling a slopey site, you're not getting back in again. So you've got to think of every step knowing we're not getting back into that area again. Do we get some soil and stockpile it for a nice topsoil at the end of the project? All these variables you need to think of. Do we get some bricks in before we pour the slab and footings? If the bricklayer's not going to cart 4,000 bricks 35 metres up a steep cliff. So you start becoming these processes and you're thinking constantly about the job. Yeah, so it's got to ever evolve in the industry, basically, and just find that niche. And for us, it's custom homes and knockdown rebuilds.
Is that what you think that you were going to be in? Or is that like, when you say find your niche, is that a targeted thing or is that an actual thought process that you're like, this is what it's going to be? Or did you end up like just falling into it?
Probably speaking with building and not learning the right path early days. You get your builder's license. No one teaches you a thing about business. I learned very quickly. One year we did 4 or 5 builds and we turned over about $3.5 million. I was like, this is going right. And look at the bank account and these bugger all in there. So I knew something's very off. So I spoke to a couple of builders coaches out there and one of the first things, he's a guy out there, Kurt, he talks about finding a niche and your specialty. If you're sick and you've got a buggered heart, you want to see a heart surgeon, specialist. And he speaks about this very passionately. So we looked at all my numbers and my blue chip number, we made the most money, was knockdown rebuilds. Renovation extensions made some money. I thought, let's focus on that. We started targeting our money that way. So We do still take on your renovation extensions, keep the boys busy, we make money and it goes well. But our niche is that for forever space. And since we sort of honed into that target, everything else is elevated with it. You turn over money and there's money in the bank account now. And you're doing something right. Yes. And you're factoring a thing called an overhead in. What's an employee cost you? And tradies out there especially, we've got a software program called Build Simple and you're on board and you can track the team and a few other things, which is great. And I spoke to a landscaper, we're on board in the other week. I'm saying, what's your hourly rate for your qualified guy? And he goes, $35 an hour. I nearly fell over and said, mate, he's not $35 an hour. He's going to cost you more than that. What are you paying? And we broke it in.
He pays 35. That's what his rate is. But then...
And I said, mate, there's about 8 weeks of the year you don't get paid. He goes, what do you mean? I go, you get 4 weeks annual leave. You get 3 weeks of sick leave, which generally most employers use about 7 on average. And you've got 3 weeks of public holiday. So you can take 8 weeks out of the 52. You're at 44 weeks now. Now, his whole salary divided by 44 weeks, and you factor in a couple of little overheads and a car and a fuel and a few other things you had. Okay, mate, $63 an hour raw cost.
Before, maybe even before you've taken in the other 15% of your taxes and work covers and everything else on top of the 63, because it ends up being far more expensive than that's on 35.
And he was telling me he charges him out at 65. I said, mate, you're barely not even covering yourself. So even that to one bloke, now he charged him at 75 an hour from that conversation 3 weeks ago. And now he can make a little bit of money on his back. And I said, mate, now put 63 an hour as a raw cost, or input 75 an hour, because that's what's really costing you as a business to have him, because you want to make money on his back. You don't want to just turning over a landscape company, end of the year you've turned over $1 million and you've got no money in your bank because you haven't charged him out the correct rate. So just that little thing in the industry, it's just rife. No one knows your numbers.
Why do you think that is?
No one teaches you. So we, again, as a builder, and it still happens now, we get taught everything except how to run a business. What's a profit and loss? What's an employee cost you? What's an overhead? All these things which are critical. That's why every builder's going broke. COVID, when everything went 4X and destroyed all the builders are already quoting and pricing in jobs, making next to no profit anyway because they didn't know the numbers. And unfortunately, COVID washed out a mass industry of builders purely for that fact. Now, if you knew your numbers and you charged better and know the difference between margin and markup, which is a huge thing no one still knows the difference with.
Tell the people what the difference between margin and markup is.
Well, if you want to make a 20% markup, a margin on a job, you have to charge the job at 25%. And everyone goes, what do you mean? So when you do all your costings and you add it all up and you look at your bottom line, we actually made, it's actually 20%, not 25% is your profit margin. So...
And that's gross usually. So that's GP. That's
Correct.
not net profit either, which is another thing that people get confused about.
And then you take everything out of that and there's your bottom line.
Yeah, so the top line, the gross profit ends up being, and I'm no accountant either, and I'm not a finance specialist, but what you make on the job, your GP, and then your net is what after you pay for all of the shits and bits that aren't included on the job, that you have to pay for, like this beautiful office, maybe beautiful Louis in the corner, the printer ink, the lights to turn on.
The work gear.
All of that shit that you haven't included. And then after that, you get to make some money at the end of it, maybe.
Correct.
But if you're at 5% gross, chances are you're fucked.
Well, there's a builder, I don't know his name, but he's a good young fella coming through actually, and we priced a job and we thought we do a thing, client comes in, we review the plans, we give them a round number, we call it indicative cost plan, we sit down with them for a good hour and let them know, we're going to be between this range. It's going to cost 1.3 to 1.4 to build, depending on what goes into it. But now, if you want to proceed, you pay for your quote, we go out, make sure we get the engineering, all the numbers together, get trial
high
coverage.
level so that we're not wasting each other's time.
Correct.
So I'm willing to put some time into having a bit of a look-see at it to see if we're on the same page. I do it often with things as well about the dirt that's moving. Like, guys, like this is going to be a $15 a cubic metre job, around there.
Yep.
Before I go and get all of the reports read and accepted and, all of that. Do you have $10 in it? Because if so, I'm not your guy.
Yeah, correct. You just give them a high level number, and then that way you haven't spent 40 hours on a quote to find out we're at 1.5 million. You've got a budget of $1 million, and it's not the client's fault. They don't know what something costs. It's up to us to educate them. All right, based on our experience and what we do, it's going to be around here. So we qualify the client, charge a small fee for our work, because we go out now and get all the trade coverage and organise everything and proper numbers. So when we come together, it's a fixed price number that does not move. I'm going to give you some random number at 1.2, and it's going to grow to 1.3. It's 1.3, and that's your number. So we go out there and we get that number, and away you go. So we've qualified this particular client, gave him a range, it was 1.8 to 2 mil. And when we finalised the quote, we actually came in at like 1,750. I thought, almost a home run, almost going to be guaranteed. We're coming 50 grand under what we said was their base number.
Fuck yeah.
So how good's this? And
You want to quote some jobs for me? I'll go and tender them at the first rate.
Oh, that'd be nice. We come in, had a meet, sat through our whole process, about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We walk them through, my business partner Mike and I, we have it on a big screen TV, walk through the job from prelims to handover. The client's super educated, we know our numbers, everything's done. All good, he's all excited. And then a week and a half comes back later, I've got another 2 quotes. One quote was 280 grand cheaper, so I'm going to have to go with him. I said, okay, fair enough.
That's 15%.
About 18% was,
18%,
and
yeah.
we're working on a 25% markup to make a 20% profit. So basically, if we match that price, we'd be doing it for next to almost free, or maybe losing a little bit after your overheads. And then it's a small world, and I eventually found out who the builder was. And I was ringing, gave him up. Nothing to, just an educational thing. So, mate, congratulations, you won the job. Just a quick one. How do you charge your overheads into a project? 'Cause you're significantly cheaper than us. Just want to make sure you're making money too. And he goes, I actually went in pretty lean this one because we lost another one. I really wanted the job, and I don't have overheads. I said, okay. How many guys you got? He goes, I've got 8 guys. Okay, mate, these 8 guys, they all come at a price for your business. I said, what about this and that? And then he goes, no, we do all our framing ourselves. I do the tiling myself. So we just do all that. I'm like, okay, mate, so if you break your leg and you need to outsource that work to a Chippy crew or to a tiler, it's going to cost you an extra 80 grand to do the job. And I go, what margin you got in? You went at 8%. So he's essentially doing the job for cost because he hasn't even charged an overhead, which again should be about 8% of the total contract price, which in this case should be about 120 grand. And then he should be charging the jobs like he's not doing them. Even if he does it himself, he can pick up the letting gain for being, having the ability to do the work yourself. And I added it all up. I said, mate, if you had gone in 150 grand more expensive, you could make money and you still would have been well and truly cheaper than me, and you still would have won the job. And I thought he'd be thankful, and he sort of got his back up and hung up the phone pretty quick.
It's an interesting thing, because the pressures around, let's say he's moving into this space. He's found his niche that he wants to move into, but he doesn't have the workload yet. Like he said that he didn't have any work.
Correct. So he's gone in super lean.
What do you think of that?
Good on him, and he won't go broke. So he'll do the job. He'll make a good wage. And if something goes wrong in the next 10-year period, he's liable. If he hurts his leg or one of the boys gets sort of the site, he's liable. He's an unforeseen thing. We had the price rise. Every industry sent us an email going, fuel tax, fuel levy. We're absorbing about 15, 20 grand a job on every job. We're doing 10 jobs. These 250 grand a year we're absorbing. We can't pass that on to a client. So he's got no wiggle room for any absorption, and everything has to go perfect.
Have you ever had no wiggle?
Plenty. That's how I learned the hard way. Early days, again, didn't know anything about the business or the process or what an overhead is. I'd price myself in, and I was a very good chippy, so I could do things 3 days quicker than everyone else. I'd price me in at that time of doing 3 days quicker. So we had a job when we started expanding. I outsourced the carpentry project. I got all the quotes back, and they're all 40% higher than I've allowed.
Are these fucking blokes serious?
And I'm going, fuck. And then I work out that's the industry rate. That's what I should be putting in, the industry rate into my quote. If I can do it 40% cheaper, I'm still going to win the job, and I'm going to pick up 40% on the carpentry package. And pretty much that's what we do these days. We do the concreting in-house, we do the framing in-house, and we do the industry rates. And there's a little bit of wiggle room. We might be able to make an extra 4 or 5% on a project because we can do it in-house because we have the in-house trade team to be able to make that happen. And then in turn, we get the quality assurance. And it's all going to be done right. Something's wrong with the client wants a little change. We don't need to charge a variation. We just can just get it done straight away. I want a niche there. All right, boys, quickly cut a niche in the wall. If I'm outsourcing the carpentry package, that niche in the wall just cost me $500. I've had to pay a bloke to come back and cut a niche in the wall.
Of course. It's such a balancing act, and it's so difficult because at different times of different people's business and different scales and different growth trajectories and all of this, and then the workload, the family life, the boys, the everything, that bloke, if he didn't win that job, maybe those 8 guys would be finding a new job.
Oh, I get why he's done it. I just wish he went in at least charging some overheads and a little bit more. As I said, he could charge an extra 150 grand more and still won that project. It's significant. It means he's not doing the 5 other bathroom renovations. He can focus time and energy to that one project. He can focus time to himself. He can build and grow the business if he chooses he wants to, or he's happy just doing that one job a year. Good on him, and he can make a little bit more money for it, and there's more wiggle room for error.
I've spoken to a lot of people who like to coach this stuff and talk about this stuff, and you sound like you might be a guy who leans into that stuff a little bit as well, because you're not sitting here and saying, nah, fuck him, he fucking stole the job, which we've all sat and said. Like we've thrown darts at dartboards wishing it was landing in our competitor's neck because, like you sit there and sometimes I've looked at jobs. I have a decent problem sometimes of my competitors on jobs going in at 0.
Picking up on the variations and the alley rate and the
Zero.
extras.
Like, and you sit there and you go, you fuck. Like, and there's been an industry shift with contaminated dirt because there's so much. Every builder knows about contaminated dirt now. The EPA is, made contaminated dirt quite expensive because it's quite expensive and they're big jobs. The rates have been bastardised. They've been taken from what was good money at the start to medium money at the end, and now and if you want to play in the game, which if you're not playing in that game, then you don't get the rest of the dirt. Really, the contaminated dirt's always usually on the top. If you don't move the contam, you don't get the bulk. If you don't get the bulk, you don't have a job. But the contam rates have been bastardised and gone to 0. And I think that sometimes it's just the way that the cookie crumbles, and it's just the way that the industry has to be. There's always a guy dragging down the rates. There's always a guy screaming that the rates aren't enough. But I don't think that there is enough education around, because the industry is second most in insolvencies, bankruptcies, and liquidations, second only to hospitality.
It's rife, and it's not good for anyone. If the builder's going under on your project, when Porter Davis went down, my phone was ringing 10 times a week going, people crying, my home's almost finished, can you take it over and finish it? And that's the cold reality. So back to the example before, if it's a cost increase and old mate hasn't got the wiggle room to absorb because he's starting out, because he's got no money behind him and he's trying to get his name out there, but things have gone up 8-10%, he's going to lose money on the job and go broke. Mm-hmm. And then you're left with a half-finished build.
There's also guys, though, that go broke and have done all of the right business because they haven't been paid too. So it's just you're swimming in a sea of sharks with the sharpest teeth that you could ever swim.
And that's one thing I learned early days the hard way again. When you're trying to take every work and every bit of job on, you know a client's an arsehole from the get-go. You had a meeting, they're already saying all the red flags, but you want a job, so you're going, yep, no worries, to all the red flags, and you do the job, and you're halfway through it, and it's a fucking nightmare. They're not paying you, and they're holding money out. Once you have that wiggle room and able to grow, you can filter those arseholes out. So last year, I think we've done 23 projects, and there's one client that wasn't the greatest. 1 out of 23 ain't bad. It's just time and effort. Always look at it this way, take full responsibility. I'm trying to work out how I can blame myself why that client wasn't that great. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't have started the project. We had everything aligned. You should have selected your tapware, your joinery and all these things. And we should have set some more clear boundaries involved. We didn't, and we gave them a bit more extra rope because it was convenient for us to start a project straight away, and they seemed easy going at the time. And then you get to requiring answers and you can't get the answers because it's all too hard, and it all starts going pear-shaped from there. So if we had followed our process and everything selected and documented before we start the job, all these red flags wouldn't have occurred and would have been a much smoother process. So The good thing about the bad clients, you can write down what you've learnt from them and how you can avoid the bad client in the first place and how you can set a process they need to follow and be guided and educated so they follow and everything becomes more streamlined.
So there's two sides of the coin. One, if that guy came back to you and wanted to build another house now, what would you say?
Politely, no, we're a bit busy.
You okay? And if you weren't busy and that client came back to you and said, do you want to build a house, what would you say?
Yes, and here what we'll do, we'll pay for an interior designer, we'll mark up and do everything for you. So we'll buy and build that into our prelims. Interior designer for that project could be $5,000. We'll build that into our price. We'll engage the interior designer, document it all, make sure they're happy, say yes to everything, and then we'll start the project.
And that's where lessons are best learnt when the toaster's burnt. One of my good friends says, like, you say no if you have the ability to, and if you don't have the ability to, you try and put in place some things to try and limit that risk. I work for a guy doing a builder who ended up going broke, and he got one of those arsehole owners. They ended up getting fighting and going to court and everything else while the project was still running, and that they had to give 24 hours notice for site entry. But he made a deal with the neighbour to stand on top of a 44-gallon drum, and he wrote down everything that happened and all of this shit. And what ended up sending the builder broke is that the bricklayer had made the internal walls in the basement with his Besser blocks. He'd done at the wrong side of the offset peg, and they were 200mm too small. He waited till he built the whole house and then went back to him. Like, that's just being a prick.
Yeah, you can't beat that sometimes because they're just an arsehole from the get-go.
And
there's no education. They're looking for a freebie.
And that's what it ended up being. And then he ended up withholding all of the money, and the guy tried to fix it. He was a great little builder. He only did one project. He was the guy that was there from... he was helping do the surveying pegs to the, hanging the picture frames on the wall at the very end of it.
And they're the best builders.
And then, but just got railed from the very get-go. And don't get me wrong, that guy probably got a cheap house. But he fucking destroyed this builder's life that I knew through the process. Absolutely turned it upside down. I think he got about $500,000. He done him for about $500,000. So we got a $500,000 cheap house.
Yeah, just rinse and so on. Horrible business method. And now people sleep at night, and unfortunately, they're out there too. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying about the swim in the pool with sharks.
One other story I can quickly tell about my brother. Actually, he did a job for a bloke, 3 townhouses, gave him a price, said yes, and we dug a little bit deeper into the reputation of this bloke. He'd been ripping off everyone from the day he started. He would come into a job, he'd buy a block of land, knock down 45 trees, wear the fine from the council, blew the council. He even got deregistered as a builder himself because he was a builder for doing the wrong thing so many times. He made his money by ripping people off. So, unfortunately, my brother at the time didn't do the homework into the person he was looking for. He got the lock-up claim, and the bloke wouldn't pay the lock-up claim, $650,000. But they go back and forth with lawyers, everything else. Went on for about 5 months. In the end, my brother agreed to settle him for $250,000 and walking away from the job. So, old mate won $300,000. There was $100,000, a little bit of profit there. So my brother already lost about $100,000 on the job, but he walked away unscathed-ish, considering what happened. But that guy was looking for the best deal possible. He got a builder to get to lock-up stage, which is the hardest part. Ripped him off, then got someone else to finish it. So unfortunately, these snakes and scumbags do exist. And I think, unfortunately, you've got to do a bit of due diligence into your customer when you're prepared to sign a big deal.
I worked for the bloke who was on a current affair for phoenixing. He was 70 building companies that had gone through, and we did a job in Ivanhoe, just near that little village in Ivanhoe. He was building 12 townhouses on top of a basement. We got halfway through, we signed up, we quoted it for a guy, then the contract comes through from another guy, and then the guy on site's working from another guy. And we at that stage we were blowing up a little bit. We'd gone from sort of, let's say, 5 jobs a day to probably 20 jobs a day. I'm running around like a blue-ass fly trying to keep on top of everything, and you sort of stop. That's the small stuff. Yeah, you don't sweat the small stuff. We quoted it for Builder A, and now it's Builder B, and then the sign on the gate says Builder C, You know,
Alarm bells left, right, and
and
centre.
there's alarm bells, but red flags. But fuck, we're trying to make some money here, so we just keep on rocking and rolling. And then the alarm bells really started dinging, you know, and we managed to catch it, because if you catch it at the right time, and, you know, your brother might not have gotten to the full lock-up stage and then pushed harder on a claim or done something like that, he might have stopped that bleed a bit earlier, got a little bit more out of him. I don't think that these blokes are set up so in a way that they're going to pay you all of your money. But instead of your claim being 650 and only getting 250, he might have had 400 that he still got the 250, you know, or something along those lines. And I ended up getting most of it, but from that moment on, I thought to myself, there are just fucking assholes out there.
There's plenty of them too.
You've done very well doing only one in 23, though.
Early days I had a couple. Even when I was at Chippy, we were doing these substations on the Metro Rail. And this lady we found out in the end, we thought it was a probably put that out, but a building company. We were working for Building Company X. And we thought we were just doing the Chippy work, that's all we're doing, which we were. And we did a very good job. There were 6 substations and we finished them all on time, on budget, straight away. Super efficient. But they took on the plastering and plumbing package. And one of the substations, the plumbing pipe burst, flooded everything. So the builder didn't pay them, of course, because it cost a lot of money to fix. She wore a couple $100,000, then had no money to pay me, so burnt me for $45,000. And back then, $45,000 when you're drunk Chippy crew and got everything in line with everything. That and went to VCAT. Took it to VCAT for $45,000. There was only 33,000 which was documented. The others were in variations, which were sort of a couple handwritten and weren't really worth the paper they're written on, variations, which I learned that lesson the hard way. And they said on the day, I've got no money, we'll give you $15,000. I said, I'll take it. Better than nothing. So 15 out of 45. Got to be paid within 20 days. 20 days lapses. Transferred $5,000. So that's all you're getting. And that was it. So pretty much lost $40,000 on that project. And
What do you think of the VCAT process?
They're doing the best they can, but it's ordinary. They're getting flooded. And then there's no real enforcement. I was just learning that example. I was taking pennies on the dollar and I got paid a cent to that penny. Just try and avoid that process altogether, I think. If you can work out a negotiation, if you're still going to lose out, you can avoid the heartache of going through that process, to be honest.
I think that there's hurt money, there's ego money, you know, like your brother being $600,000 in, getting $250,000. He's covered the large portion of his costs. He loses his profit. He loses his overhead. He loses his time. He loses some money out of the bank balance. But, you know, like if you can get that first 30, 40, 50%, that's the bit that really, really hits the business hard, you know.
You just got to get something out of the deal and move on, and then take the lessons and try and learn from them.
Well, that's the other part. People get so caught up that it keeps their brain full.
And you got to learn to let it go, because you could have 8 other good clients and one crap one. You can't dwell on it, because these 8 other people are doing the right thing, and you got to focus on the 8 other people, and you got to grow the business. If you're dwelling and moaning about it forever, it's going to rub off in the day-to-day. You're going to become an arsehole yourself on the phone. You're going to be short-tempered. You're going to be moody. You're shitty because you're chasing your tail again because you lost all your profit. You're trying to make it up, and you're struggling for cash flow. You just got to get on with it, accept that it's done, and move on and focus on the good things.
You've mentioned and lent back a few times into this education and lessons and all of this stuff for tradesmen. Like I don't know if earth movers are tradesmen. But you know what I mean. Yeah, tell me again.
I think we need to list industry standards as a minimum. We talk about the BPC now, VBA, as it was when you become a registered builder. Mm-hmm. And the process was involved. You had to learn how to become an engineer, basically, how to read the textbooks and follow the textbooks to let it leave it. No one taught the business side of things. So as a minimum, before you become a registered builder, you need to work. They need to teach you some simple maths to work out what an employee costs you, what's an overhead, what's the vehicle cost the company a year. You're paying the lease payment, generally it's $20,000 a year, but not many people know that as a round hole number.
Yeah, we work out like it ends up being around $20,000, but it can vary wildly.
Oh, it can easily.
You know, like someone who lives, be wary of tolls. Like you've got no idea, or I'm sure you do, but if you have someone that lives near a tunnel,
that, like, you don't have a company policy about getting in and out of that fucking tunnel every day, then they're going to use it. And that's okay, you know. But start to have a look. Have a look if they're driving in and out of the CityLink every single day and through a tunnel and over a bridge, then all of a sudden that's like, what do I think of? I think there was an example that we had like $300 or $400 a week in someone tolls in a car that we have, which like well within their rights back then to do. But fuck, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, surely, mate, go around, might take the extra half an hour. The trigger wants only $300, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, I said you can take the bridge, you can't take the tunnel. Right, I knew where you lived when I employed you. I thought that you would have gone round it. That would have been my own personal preference. That's what I would have done. However, I understand not everyone's me. And I think that there's actually a broken, and you've probably, for me anyway, I completely agree with you, hit the nail on the head. The education is the real thing that's lacking here in terms of the schools. They don't teach what superannuation is. Why is it that you do a tax return every fucking year of your life, but they're teaching you about how to read Romeo and Juliet, but they're not teaching you about how to do a tax return?
And they're not that hard. If they actually just taught in year 10 how to do a lodge a bass, at least have the knowledge. You don't need to lodge it yourself. If you had the knowledge of how it all works and how your numbers work.
To even read through it and to understand what it means.
It baffles me how it's not taught. And it should be a minimum standard. Anyone who wants to become a licensed trade or industry needs to know these numbers.
I think that the knowledge base of that, if there's guys going out there, it's gone are the days where you can be an incredibly you can be a highly skilled tradesman and be incredibly successful. If you are highly skilled, you will just end up breaking your back. You know, as everyone reads about, you know, it seems like every business coach out there is saying, you know, this is how you're going to stop being on the tools. Turn over $5 million, work 100-hour weeks. This is how we're going to get you off of the tools. Really what they're saying is they're going to teach you how to run a business.
And there's plenty good ones out there.
There is.
Out there now, we're saying the industry don't teach you. I tell young tradies or anyone aspiring to grow a business in whatever shape or form, being a Sparky or Earthworks or whatever it might be, invest the time to some self-education. It only probably costs you maybe 10 grand max. You'll learn more than you'll learn in a lifetime of 3 or 4 years of hard work, like the way I learned the lessons.
Yeah. Learn the lessons, losing double, triple, quadruple that amount of money 10 times over.
I turned over $3 million and I made about 3 grand, I reckon. So I liked it. And I was like, I'm doing something wrong. Then I invested the money. And then I started learning, and then I'm like, oh my God, I can turn over $3 million and make, $600,000. Like, fucking unbelievable.
And you should.
Yeah.
And you should. That's the other part. You should be making good money. I started, I had a lot of people because, obviously, I must talk okay on the microphone. I had a lot of people reaching out and asking me questions about stuff. So I started saying, right, if you want me to actually look into it, I will, but it costs money. Right, I'll look into it. I'll go through your numbers. I'll go through your quotes. I'll sit down. I'll have a chat to you. I'll meet your team. I'll do that because if I'm going to try and give you advice about your business, I will actually want to know about your business. It's no point in trying to say it from the outset. I can't pick apart a business in 3 minutes, and I think anyone who thinks that they can is full of shit. And I went to a guy a while ago. Fuck, he was making good money, killing it, like. Great business, great clients, niche market, had the people who did the stuff by the balls, but also worked in with him and they liked him and they killed it. And he's like, oh, I want to scale. And I'm like, well, okay, if you want to scale, let's set some goals. How much money do you want to make? He's like, no, I don't want to make money. But he's like, I'm sick of being at this size. And I'm like, And I'm like, well, so, what's your plan in terms of doing this stuff or that stuff? And he goes, oh, I don't really have one. I just want to scale. And I'm like, scaling isn't always the answer. If you've got a great business, I know that everything online says that, the success always is another step, I wanted to employ someone. I wanted to have a factory. I wanted to have a yard. I wanted to have trucks. I wanted to have diggers. I want to do the biggest jobs, want to own a Ferrari. Well, like there's just making good money too, you know, which I think is needs to be celebrated as well.
I think that know where your limit is. So some people could be 3 million in revenue, and that's my limit. I'm making money. I got family time. It's a great lifestyle. Some people, their limit's 15, 20 million. It doesn't matter what your limit is. Know where you're comfortable and where you're happy. There's going to be some point where you're at a level where you're growing going, this fucking sucks. I'm not enjoying it. I've become a full-time admin person in front of a desk. I thought I was going to be a chippy or a plumber on site all day, and I'm hating my life. Peg it back a notch and know your number and be happy where you are.
Long time ago, someone told me that because I was a go-getter, I was like, I fucking wanted to dig holes and do this, and he goes to me, Jimmy, going really well. When you don't sleep, and you'll know what I mean when you get there. He's like, you might have that level, and that level for you might be 200, 500 blokes, 100 blokes, 20 blokes. At some point, you're not going to sleep. And it's not going to be for a short amount of time. You're going to stare at the roof every fucking night wondering what's going on. He's like, that's your level. He's like, don't push too hard to get there and get past it. He goes, you probably might be able to, but he goes, you might destroy everything on the way through. You know, when you're trying to just keep going.
I think once you get to a level, work out when you can't sleep and you're stressed, you can identify the problems. You know, I can hire another person here, might solve that problem, or if I add this year, I can solve that problem. You try and solve it. If you can't solve it or don't want to solve it, peg it back a notch. If you solve it, you go to the next level.
Yeah.
And you treat it one step at a time. You don't try and go from 0 to 100.
Well, you don't try and build the whole brick wall in a day. You've got to set the courses and then keep on going up. Louis gave me the 5-minute wrap up. That's over an hour now. Do you believe it?
Wow, time flies.
See, time flies. What else did you want to bring up today? Was there anything that we haven't touched on in terms of your little questionnaire thing that we send out?
Maybe even just we'll probably talk more about the employees and how we look after them, and
love to,
essentially the arm,
because they're actually the well, you can't do it without them.
No, so for us, we've got 15 now. My oldest guy, his name's Guy. He's 53, and I actually moved in with him when I was about 18 years old. He's my footy coach at the time, and he's a plumber by trade, and we're basically best mates. We also fight worse than I do with my missus. And it's funny when you got your team there, you want to have a bit of camaraderie and you grow, and everyone's doing the right thing. You work and you have a bit of a laugh, and it's about looking after them too. You want to make money and grow. You got to make sure they're making money. We give the guys little targets. They hit them. They can make an extra 10, 15 grand a year in bonuses. Even little thing, we have a work break up, or go-karting, mid-season trip. We might go to the footy and get a box and have a few beers, and probably looking after your team and critical, and knowing every day someone's always going through some sort of shit. Like we are as a business owner, you worry about yourself sometimes, and you wonder why a bloke is feeling a bit off and not talking too much, and you know his wife could have had a miscarriage, or there could be something going on personally at home. So I think it's sometimes don't get caught up in your own ego, and realise and have a chat to your employees and see how they're feeling. And if everyone's reasonably happy, or even if they're sad, you help pick them up when they're sad and do the right thing and level people back up, you become a very good business and a very good person to work for. So don't forget about the guys that get you to where you got.
Don't leave them behind.
No, bring everyone along for the ride, and you're no bigger than the bloke picking up a piece of shovel, because you're making small money and you've got a reputation now. Everyone's still the same person. You go into that work site, you see the labourer, you say good day, and you see the client, you say good day. You treat them both the exact same. We're all people at the end of the day, all trying to do the right thing.
I think that's what it ends up having to be at some point, though, because there's a lot of choice out there for people to go to work for. Lot of choice, lot of industries. It's they're screaming for workers,
Left, right, and centre,
screaming for labour. They get a choice. They're not going to work for someone who's screaming and pissing and moaning and yelling. And wasn't like 20 years ago where that was, or 30 years ago when that was almost expected that sort of stuff would happen.
Come around, and I'm actually pretty happy it's come around a bit too. They're the backbone of the business, and employees. Make sure they're happy and doing the right thing, and they'll in turn do good work for you. And we actually want a project. There's a lady, she was renting a place up the road, unknown to me. She was looking for a knockdown-rebuild, and every day she'd walk past the sites, and the boys would just say hello when she's walking past. And she rang me one day. She said, walk past your site. The boys are so lovely. They always say hello to me, and there's a young boy there I stop and have a chat to all the time. So that almost gave us a leg up in the door, just because the people have just been nice people and polite to the old.
Yeah, but those are the
lady
people
walking
that I'd
past.
like to go and see building my house because they're nice. I'm not going to feel like, like it's guys like swearing, screaming and being pigs on a job site, because they're representing your brand. That lady probably walked past and thought to herself, I'd be happy to go and look at my job with those guys on it.
Yeah, it just, I was more proud of that than what we've done to grow the business to where it is today. Just having the right morals and ethics and just being polite.
Do you actively work on them? Do you have like morals and values written on the board?
That's funny actually. We've grown the business a fair bit more in the last probably year and a half, and I've got a guy on board now. He's great, and he's comes up with purchase orders and a few other things we do now. And he goes, "How do the boys order some material?" And they just basically order what they want. It comes there. And goes, "How do you know we've got a spending limit or whatever limit?" I said, "No, the first thing I chat to the guys, I usually get recommended, then they qualify to working for me. Basically, just don't take the piss. It's as simple as that. It's probably a loose term. It could be formalised a little bit better phrase, but just don't take the piss, because I still review every invoice that comes through. Oh, no, you've over-ordered timber for your own house or whatever. And I always tell them, if you want to do something in your own house or whatever, you let me know and I'll help you out. If I ever find you catching one thing, there's just no warning, you just go."
Yeah.
The boys don't. And he goes, "Mate, there's no company like that." I said, "Well, you just trust the guys."
He is like that.
Yeah. You just, the trust in them and they trust back in
Do
you.
you think that that's a scalable thing though?
There'll probably come a point where it's not.
I didn't believe at a fundamental level about truck load rates in
Yours
tippers.
would be much different, I think, that aspect.
So it places the responsibility of the job running well, the tip running well, the road being open, the excavator turning on, the excavator operator being there to turn on the excavator, the dirt being accepted, the dirt being of the quality that, all of it. It places that on a load rate, all on the truck driver. So I didn't believe in it. So I did hourly hire. And the first 15 blokes, 20 blokes, I had hourly hire, paid them 8 hours a day, 9 hours, 10 hours a day. If I got a huge amount of loads, they go great. I made a lot of money. If I'd got a lower amount of loads, I'd hopefully priced it on that and I made the money that I was meant to make. The reason that there's load rates in the industry is because on hourly hire, a truck that's driving from Glen Waverley to Pakenham doesn't have a lot of oversight and takes the piss. And so you have a job you've priced at 5, he gets 4. Or 5, and the bad ones get 3 because they come back and they say, "Tip, line was long, the fucking traffic was bad, there was a flood, there was an earthquake, blah, 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 blah." So I got some help in the office around the time that this happened, and I got ripped off 20 grand in a week.
Yeah, wow.
Because I was running at that stage about 20, 25 trucks. So on average, each truck had ripped me off. On average, mind you, some trucks had fucking done way worse than the others. Each truck had ripped me off for $1,000 for the week.
Yeah, these are 60 grand. Yeah.
So we changed the industry standard of the load rate because of the fact that at some point the vetting of the people that come on board is going to be real difficult to keep them. And then I was talking yesterday to someone about, you can bring them in, but to welcome them into the culture and make them part of the team takes a much longer time. And to place that trust in them, you're used to having instant engagement, instant trust, instant integration into this society that is Ryan Developments, and then have them do the right thing. And you want to do the right thing by them, but then this bloke doesn't understand the importance of don't order fucking timber for your house. Or in my case, like if you get 3 loads and it's a genuine 3 loads, I'll pay you the whole day. But if you can get 6 loads, I fucking demand 6 loads. Yeah, it's an expectation of 6 loads. But everyone had lost that because I probably scaled from 1 truck to 25 trucks in 3 years.
I was going to say, how quick was that period?
3 years, 3 years. And so it was probably exploding pretty fast, you know, and it just meant that I was calling in people, barely knowing them, and then they're saying, hourly hire. Hey.
Yeah, where's the culture? Oh, yeah, get here, get it done.
Yeah, get in, get it done. I need you. Come on board. I pay hourly. I'm expecting 4 loads. And they go, yeah, but every time I rock up on hourly, they say 4 loads. Now, so hourly went from 100% of my work, 100, to like it's like 10 or 20% of my work now. It's the percentage is fuck all, right? Because that's the industry standard. But in actual fact, if the trucks did the right thing, it'd be more accepted. But they don't. Like as a,
And that's where they ruin it for themselves now. You get your rate.
you get the load rate and hope that the traffic. Keep your fingers crossed that the traffic isn't bad. But that's about the end of it. I appreciate you coming a lot. At the end of everyone, we say like, subscribe, share. Look up Ryan Developments on the internet. You've got a great page. You put out a lot of high quality content.
Thanks, Jimmy.
And thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate it a lot. Share, subscribe, like, comment, send it 5 stars. Don't fucking review it at 2 stars, which half of my mates would do. See you on the next one. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jimmy.
See ya.